Welcome to the Final Frontiers radio show, where we spotlight inspiring missionary endeavors around the globe. Stay tuned to hear how you can personally get involved, helping the Lord's frontline soldiers effectively advance the gospel where it has never been preached before. Today, we'll have the testimony of 13-year-old Grace Dover, telling her experience of growing up on a South American mission field. And we'll have a National Church Planner's biography for a preacher in the country of Guatemala. This is Joshua Martin, and I am once again out at the boot camp that we've had this year, this summer, the training boot camp for missionaries that's done by Beyond Borders. And I have Grace Dover with me here. Her dad and her mom are missionaries to Peru. They were there for 10 years. She grew up there. Some of her earliest memories are in that country, and she's been through all of the expedition times and the different things that we've done there. Grace, how old are you?
I'm 13 years old.
She's been out here at the boot camp, and she's been actually a part of a lot of those scenarios, survival, medical, safety, and all this security and everything. And she's even done some driving out here, and I've seen her trying to do her fires, starting her fires with a striker like all of the other campers. And so she's been a part of it a lot, and her dad has been instructing out here. Her mom has been instructing. And I just wanted, Grace, if you could tell our listeners what it was like growing up in Peru. What's your earliest memories of that?
My earliest memory was when I was 3 years old, and we didn't have curtains, and we were eating, and the kids from the village would always come up, and they would just watch us. Then finally one day I noticed, and I was annoyed, I guess, and I walked up there, and in Spanish I said, "Go away and go to your home," I think. "Vete a tu casa," that's what I said. And I guess they started running away. But I think
you were pretty little.
Yeah, I think that's my earliest memory down there.
So being a missionary kid and being in a foreign country, and you're thinking, how are these people coming up and looking in my house? How many sisters and brothers do you have?
I have 2 sisters and 2 brothers.
So you've had a lot of time growing up there, and I know that now you've been in ministry there and everything. Do you remember times when your dad would be going into the jungle? Do you remember what that was like, going after tribes?
I remember specifically one night I was in my bed with the net, and I laid there because Dad was about to leave that night to go to a bus station, go to the airport, but I cried, and I usually did because I wasn't sure if I'd see him again, but and he told me not to cry, and I felt better. Yeah, and my grandma was there, so it was nice when she was there.
You remember hiking up to San Cristobal and places?
Yeah, I remember doing that once or twice, and I remember being in the old villages where we were. And I had my favorite dress. It was my Easter dress. And I had my hat that I got one time. It was green inside and blue outside, so I wore that a lot.
What was birthdays like?
Birthdays. Well, our neighbors would come over, and we go into town, get some cake, come back with a piñata filled with candy, and then we'd have the neighbors over, Eddie and the Trigozos, and they would be there, and we would play Uno. Uno was always the birthday thing. And we had Inca Cola and Coca-Cola. We would play Uno, then we'd eat cake, and then we would do the piñata, and then we would do presents. One birthday, I got a special bear. It's actually in a picture in the photo album on our display. He's hiding in the corner of my bed, and that was the day my bed wasn't made. He got the picture when my bed wasn't made, but he would sing this song. He's a big white bear. He had a big red heart on it and said something, but he would always sing this song in Spanish. I couldn't really understand the words, but I really liked that bear.
And Eddie, he's a national preacher, and I know at Final Frontiers we have given him a power pack that he's using. And he actually built you guys when you were back on furlough. You came back and you had this huge jungle gym that he made out of bamboo, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. And he would take care of things while you guys were gone.
Yeah.
But I know he built that all for you guys, and then he took care of your house for you. So instead of you guys building something for him, he was building something for the missionary. What was the jungle gym like, though? I remember it was really cool.
Yeah, well, I would climb this, it's like 3 bamboo stalks going up in the air, like about 10 feet high. I would climb this green rope, and it's like the kind that sheds, so it would hurt my hands. And I kept trying to go up there, and I had this little bucket. I would go up there, and I had my book, and I would read, and then I would go down. But it was fun. Most of it's gone, but the tire swing and a couple trapeze things are still there, but
Monkey bars and stuff was breaking, some of it.
Yeah, that's all gone.
Yeah, but he worked really hard on that.
Yeah.
He's a good guy. Your house, you were talking about how you had no curtains. What else was like your house like? Like, describe it for people who are in America.
It's bigger than it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Just mixing up the measurements, but
'Cause you're in the central jungle, so everything gets totally wet and everything, and so it's kind of hard to have a normal house there. So you guys built it from cement.
most of it is cement blocks. Like, sometimes you'll see a house, you'll see the platform, maybe cement or something, but the whole house was like that, except upstairs, the top floor, second floor is all wood up there, and then wood for flooring so that missionaries can come down there and stay there. But yeah, we're hoping to get that done. So every time we have more people come down, we'll have them help us with that. So that we can have that, and then more people can come down and stay there. And we're hoping that's where I can have my new room upstairs.
Yeah.
And then we have the big white rope that we hang from the top.
Oh, yeah.
and we climb that sometimes up to the second floor there. And then we used to walk on these boards. One would go a certain direction and then another direction towards the flooring there, because there's one room where there's some floor, and then on the other side there's Dad's workshop, and then there's our girls' room, and then the boys' room downstairs.
There's no ceilings, really. Right?
No. The roof was made out of tin, though, so when it rained, it would sing me and some of us kids to sleep when it was raining, and I always used to play there. I had a stuffed animal. I would put the blanket over me and then hide there and pretend the rain was something that could hurt me. But it just comforted me with the noise.
What kind of bugs and stuff get into the house? Because I know they're all over the place by the lights and everything.
There's moths, bugs, and let's see, October and September, I think, is when the kokies come out. Those are flying ants that you can take, you could fry them, and then you can eat them. But you can't eat the heads, because that will make you sick, so you have to eat all the back end part.
Most kids in America would not understand that. All these ants that fly around and you can fry them and eat them. Tell us about the first time that girl that you were able to witness to. Was that the San Cristobal village, or was that a different village?
It's San Cristobal, but the lower part. We're not up in the higher part in the mountain there. They actually call that part that we're going to San Miguel. That's where they call that part. The part that we used to go up, higher up, that's San Cristobal.
And I remember, and you've been teaching Sunday school and things there too, because you learned Spanish better than your brothers and sisters. And so you were teaching and you were helping, and that's in that lower village, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tell about that girl that you were able to talk to.
Her name's Fatima. She should be 8 or 9 now. But one time, Dad and Eddie were talking in the truck on, it was Thursday or Wednesday night after church, and I heard them talking about Fatima, and she needed to get saved. And I was thinking, I could do that. And Dad turns behind, because he was driving, he looks behind and looks at me and said, "You should witness to Fatima, because all she really needs is to hear how to get saved. She's been in church all her life now." So I worked on what I should say. It's the first time I've witnessed to other people, but I sat there and I had her come after Sunday school. I had her sit down, and there were some interruptions with people walking by, but I talked to her, and she said she wanted to get saved. We prayed together. She said she was saved. I said, you wait here and I'll go grab Eddie. So I went up. I got Eddie. He was sweeping, and Dad was talking. I was going to grab Dad, but he was talking to someone. So I asked Eddie, and he came, and he asked her a couple questions. He answered them. And then he said that he thought she was saved. And he went over, and Dad finished talking, and he talked to him. And Dad was like, good, she's saved. And that was the first person I had witnessed to that had gotten saved, so.
Yeah, you got to be a part of that. When I've been there in the jungle, you've gone on, this last time I was there, I took you up into the central jungle, and we went climbing in the waterfalls and the jungle and the mountains, and you kept up fantastic, and you were like climbing and everything through the water and through the rock and all that, and I know you said that you just wanted to prepare yourself because you want to do hard mission stuff like that too. So what's your dream for the future, you think, as you're getting older?
I used to want to live a farm life, a hard life like that, but I thought about going and living in the deep jungle, living there, and raising like some sort of a farm down there. I would stay there. Either India or Peru is where I want to go.
Mm-hmm.
But, so I want to be a missionary to India or Peru. That's where I want to go.
I love those two places too. I love India, I love Peru. And my heart's the same on that. I've always wanted that too, just go into the jungle and disappear in there and help a tribe of people. I would love that. Well,
but,
whatever God wants
yeah.
for you someday, we'll see. I'm glad that you're serving the Lord. And you grew up as a missionary's kid, and you saw all the things that your mom and dad have done, and now your heart is for missions, so that's really awesome. Well, I hope our listeners out there will pray for the children of the missionaries, and I hope this helps you think and see a little bit from their perspective and some of the ways that they live. And she's not telling you all the hard times. I mean, I can remember one time when you actually got bit by black dogs, those ants, and you almost, that can kill somebody. I mean, terrible things that happen to these kids, and you never know what's going to happen. So be praying for your missionaries. Thanks for talking to us, Grace.
Mm-hmm.
In protected jungles around the world, there are still over 140 isolated tribes that have remained completely uncontacted. Who will reach them first? Loggers and oilmen with their guns, or peaceful ambassadors of Jesus Christ bearing the good news of salvation? These last remaining dark territories on Earth are extremely difficult to penetrate. If you are interested in partnering with us to help fund these expeditions, please visit us at finalfrontiers.world.
Welcome to Biographies, where we read you the original letters sent in from Final Frontiers church planters all over the earth. These short stories are dictated by John Nelms, who dearly hopes you enjoy and find inspiration from these initial handwritten testimonies of national missionaries in their own words. Remember to check this episode's show notes for a more in-depth video link of the story told to you today.
Today we're talking about a preacher in Guatemala named Diego Hernandez Mendez. Mendez is not an uncommon name. That's one of my wife's last names. And if you know anything about the Latin people, you know they have a lot of names. His wife's first name is Elena. In fact, her name is Elena Lopez Perez. So her name then would be Elena Lopez Perez Hernandez because she's married to him. So who knows how many other names she uses. Looks like they've got 5 children at the time this application came in, which was in the year of 2001. So we've been blessed to be affiliated with this brother now for 15 years. Let me read his biography or his testimony to you. Diego says, I accepted Jesus Christ in 1975. I was about 10 years old when my parents spoke to me of the gospel of Jesus. They had already accepted Christ. And when I received him, I felt the washing away of my sins, and now I am enjoying the blessings of the Lord. When I was 20 years old, I began studying at the Esdras Bible Institute. After my graduation, the Lord put me to pastoring a church, and since then, I'm working in the ministry of the Lord. My wife was saved at age 16 and also graduated from Esdras Bible Institute. And that's a school that used to be located just outside the town Huehuetenango in northwestern Guatemala. They've since moved somewhere, I'm not quite sure. He says, I'm actively and consistently involved in training others for the ministry. I have started 3 churches and led 50 people to Christ. We hold open-air evangelistic meetings, disciple our converts, and we take the gospel to the slums. My work is with the Mam tribe, which is a part of the Mayan people. We are from the western part of Guatemala, along the border with Mexico and the Pacific Ocean. I speak Spanish and the Mam language. I've also trained 3 men who are now serving in the ministry. Your financial assistance will improve our living conditions and will help us reach more souls for Christ. We need some support for transportation to visit other areas to carry the gospel to those who need Christ. My people mostly live high up in the mountains, so we have to rent mules or ride buses or walk to get to the villages and towns so we can preach the gospel to them. Many have never heard unless we go to them, and that is why we need your help. Listen, I've been up there in those mountains and driven trucks, 4-wheel drives, as far as you can drive, which may take 3 or 4 hours, and then you have to get out and walk for another 3 or 4 hours. So they're very, very remote. Oftentimes have no schools, no education for the kids. They subsist on whatever they can grow at these extremely high elevations, and quite often they're above the tree line. So even something like firewood is precious to them. They have to go halfway down the mountain to get it. But there's people living up there, and the only way to get there is either by walking, riding a mule, or using a helicopter, and they can't afford a helicopter. So they find where their villages, and generally when they're evangelizing one village, there may be somebody there who listens to them who's from another village. And he'll introduce himself and say, I'm from such and such village over on the other side of that mountain. And they'll head off with him there to go to that village. So they may be gone from their home for days at a time or weeks at a time. That's why we try to support them. If they're having to work in a factory or driving a taxi or something like that, they can't go out to those places. They've got to get back home, get an hour's sleep before they get up and go to work the next day. But by supporting these men full time, they're able to go and go and go and go. And while they're going, they're winning souls to Christ, establishing churches, and training men for the ministry who will do just like they're doing until eventually everyone's heard the gospel. Thanks so much.
Your inquiries and comments are important to us. If you have questions or perhaps subject matter you would like to have addressed on the show, please visit finalfrontiers.world.
It is redundant to state that 100% of all unbelievers in the world do not have a relationship with Jesus. But did you know that 86% of all unbelievers also do not have a relationship with a Christian? Yet history has demonstrated that friendships and family relationships are the best and surest way to bring a person to Christ. Andrew brought his brother Simon Peter to meet Jesus. When Hellenic visitors in Jerusalem heard about our Lord raising Lazarus from the dead, they sought out not Christ himself, but some of his disciples and requested, Sirs, we would see Jesus. When Saul encountered Jesus on the road to Damascus, the Holy Spirit sent Ananias to befriend him, heal him, and bring him to a saving knowledge of Christ. It was after a businesswoman named Lydia met Paul and Silas on the banks of a small river outside Philippi that she invited them to her house, became a believer, and her home became the first house church in Europe. While there, Paul and Silas were arrested and got to know a Philippian jailer and his family. More converts. Then there was Peter fellowshipping with and converting the entire household of Cornelius, a Roman centurion. The examples of friendship and family evangelism are endless. Tragically, there's only a slight chance of someone who does not know a believer ever coming to Christ. It happens, but it's rare. Yet there's every reason to expect that someone who does know a believer would come to Christ, unless the believer utterly fails in his opportunities to witness. The reason most unbelievers don't know a Christian is that they live in countries that are restricted or closed to missionary activity. But God always has a witness on hand. We call them national preachers, and we as a ministry exist to find them and support them. Wouldn't you like to help? I'm John Nelms, To learn more about missions, order a copy of my book, The Great Omission, on our website at finalfrontiers.world.
You've been listening to the Final Frontiers radio show, funded by sponsors like you. Thank you so much for joining us. Through the funding of national and native preachers, we endeavor to effectively advance the gospel where it has never been preached before. If you want more information, visit www.finalfrontiers.world. That's finalfrontiers.world.